Before we get to this week's episode, we have a very special message. The whole team at AAF is reeling at the sudden loss of our dear friend Jill Sobule. Jill was with us from the very beginning of this org and has stayed a steadfast supporter in all ways. She's toured with us, we've stood shoulder to shoulder defending clinics around the country, and she brought her beautiful self and her beautiful voice to countless AAF shows. Her humor, bravery, loyalty, and brilliance made her truly family to this org. Liz was one of her dearest friends, but we are all devastated and grieving. We will remember Jill's fighting spirit and arm ourselves with it as the battle continues. Rest in power, Jill. We love you.
We have a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad update on that horrible, terrible, no good, very bad Texas law trying to ban medication abortion. Plus, we break down a terrible, no good, very bad anti-abortion birdcage liner masquerading as a research paper.
Plus, abobo journalist extraordinaire Susan Rinkunas is here to talk about why Chip Roy has revived a baseless investigation into 5 abortions that have nothing to do with him.
And comedian, actor, and writer Jenny Yang is here to dish about comedy in this new era and her podcast, What Should We Talk About?
All this coming up on this episode of the Feminist Buzzkills podcast, the show that still can't afford floor seats to see Beyonce. I'm Moji Alawariel, and I'm joined by my guest co-host, Alyssa Al-Dookhi. Hi, Dukes.
Hey, Moji. Let's kick off the pod in Texas, where anti-abortion lawmakers are violently back on their bullshit.
Oh my God, they so are too.
Last month, you and Liz talked about the motherfucker of all abortion bans that Texas introduced. It's so dystopian. It basically tries to ban Texans from using the whole ass internet to get any abortion info.
Yep. And as this bill slowly oozes its way through the legislature, Texas has done what it's always done, taking a deeply horrific idea and said, what if we made it worse?
Yeah. So the baseline of horrible is what they introduced last month. So this bill bans Texans from ordering abortion pills online and bans nonprofit funds that help patients travel out of state for care.
Yeah, it also goes after websites that share information about abortion pills to Texans, and it specifically targets tech companies that allow abortion info to exist on their platforms.
And I feel like they even take that a step further because we feel like we've heard that before, but this even going to go after payment companies like PayPal and Venmo for processing abortion-related transactions.
Yikes.
Yeah, so be careful what emojis you're using in your Venmos.
It's true. And for some extra cruelty, because really everything has to be bigger in Texas, the bill also creates a civil liability for the wrongful death of an unborn child as a result of taking the medication. And that was just in the first draft, right? There have been some more updates, and that's really what we're here for. That's just a reminder of like, the fuck? But then there have been some more updates.
Yeah, they've jacked up the fines. Originally, it was $10,000 if you committed any of these crimes. And now it's up to $100,000 because why just bankrupt someone when you can absolutely ruin their entire lives?
Also, what I think is like really diabolical, and we may have used this word, but I think it really fits, is they wrote into the law that anyone who decides to challenge the law in court will have to pay both sides legal fees. So they'll have to pay the cost to defend the law, and then they'll have to pay the cost to try to end this law that is blatantly unconstitutional.
And what happens, for example, if you won one of these lawsuits?
Okay, so then if you go to the next step and someone sues you and you won one, well, you're not going to get your money back that you paid to defend yourself. So essentially, I just feel like if someone wants to bankrupt you, they could just accuse you of this, and you're going to have to shell out at least some money to pay a lawyer. And that's just money gone.
And additionally, like as if that's not bad enough, if a judge was to rule this law unconstitutional, that judge can also be sued for $100,000.
I just don't understand how that works. Like, how do you have an impartial ruling if the judge knows, oh, if I don't rule one way, this could potentially cost me $100,000? It's just, that doesn't feel, what's the word I'm looking for? Fair? Equal?
Yeah. I think the word you're looking for is unjust, perhaps.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird. And we know that like this seems reasonable, right? Like just in Wisconsin, what is it, last week, they arrested a judge for essentially not delivering a man into ICE's custody. So this bill is legally bonkers, morally bankrupt, and essentially designed to make fighting it as punishing as possible, like expensive and just annoying. I can't. I'm really, really distressed by this. It's passed in the Texas Senate. It still has to go back to the House, but it's on its way. It has not died in committee like it should have.
We're keeping our eyes on this bill as it makes its way through, and we'll have all the updates as they come in.
And, just to keep it light, because that's the kind of podcast we have more updates on the world of repro. That's right. It's time for a steaming dump of this week's abortion news.
In an appearance on something called News Nation, healthcare assassin RFK Jr. gurgled through another conspiracy theory, this time claiming there is, quote, fetal debris from abortions in the MMR vaccine.
Okay, this is just more debunked crack pottery being spread by a wellness grifter who doesn't understand how fetal stem cell lines work. He also drinks his own pee, and he recommends replacing Vagisil with horse dewormer.
Yummy. So if you see some kind of chunks in your next vaccine, it's not fetal debris. It's probably just essential oil from the latest MLM to run the NIH.
Fake clinics in Minnesota are big mad after the legislature, by one vote margin, refused to reinstate taxpayer dollars to fund their anti-abortion version of a Nigerian Prince scam. This is a win for everyone who thinks tax dollars shouldn't go to pay for your counseling on how to reverse your abortion or performing ultrasounds on machines found on Buy Nothing. Go Wolves!
And finally, Captain Drunk Dial Pete Hegseth is on a regressive tear, killing the policy that lets service members travel out of state for abortion care if they're stationed somewhere with a total ban.
And just this week, he's been high-fiving the whole manosphere after announcing plans to shut down a woke woman in the military leadership program created by, wait for it, Ivanka Trump.
It really begs the question, how can Hegseth identify woke women when he seems to only gravitate towards the ones who are already passed out?
Oh my gosh. I really love that joke. Like, what the fuck?
He has a type. You know what I'm saying? I didn't think that would be it.
Asleep.
Mm-mm.
Well, now let's get to the stories that we need to break down further. Dukes, set us off.
Yeah, well, if you're anything like us, you Googled abortion pill this week and were met by scads of articles about a quote unquote study comprised of pure, uncut anti-abortion horse shit.
If you Googled that, you might have noticed that all the stories were from news organizations that are definitely not reputable.
Yeah. It was like, don't look at our sources.com reports.
Yeah, this was a totally legit, not at all sus study from this org called the Ethics and Public Policy Center, which erroneously claims that medication abortion is 22 times more dangerous than the FDA says it is.
Which is crazy because I feel like they spent a week making that up and the abortion pill took years to go through all the hurdles. I don't know.
I feel like getting into this, like, let's get started. Like, who the fuck is Ethics and Public Policy Center?
Yeah, it's basically a church pamphlet disguised as a think tank, is what it is. A conservative think tank is what other people might call that.
That's the same thing. I think that you said it right the first time. Basically, just a bunch of ideological hobgoblins furiously trying to type out policy briefs in a Hobby Lobby break room.
That makes sense that that's where hobgoblins come from.
I think that's exactly. Hobby Lobby seems like a place that would absolutely create them. If you it's funny because, again, anyone can build a website. And if you look at their website and take it at face value, it looks legit. I mean, it's legit as the Heritage Foundation, but they have this fun.
That was a great joke, Moji. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much. They have a sketchy kind of disclaimer, and it says the views expressed by EPPC scholars on their work are their individual views and are not to be imputed to EPPC as an institution. The fuck is that saying?
All I heard was PP. And
I heard impugn. That was very, very juvenile of me.
Well, I feel like, a lot of places do have disclaimers, but what I heard you say is basically that don't sue us when you realize this isn't real research.
It just seems like exactly. It seems like one of those things that what's his name in Texas, that judge in Amarillo, Texas, would take as a study, and then it would be retracted 5 minutes later.
Absolutely. Well, they need to fill that hole of the retracted study hole.
So anyway, let's get into what this study did, right? We know we shouldn't trust it, but is it peer reviewed? What kind of methodology do they use? What do you know about this study?
So basically, the study claims that it proves that the FDA is lying about the dangers of medication abortion, which is just like, what they've been creaming to do this whole time. They say they analyzed 865,727 insurance claims for mifepristone between 2017 and 2023, which sounds like a lot. I've never counted that high in my entire life.
No, not once.
But what that number refers to is the number of prescriptions filled, not the complications that are out here, not the outcomes, just the amount of prescriptions for pills sent out.
I know it's expensive, but I've absolutely been known to purchase a prescription and then not use it.
Absolutely.
And it seems like in this, they claim that almost 11% of patients experience sepsis, hemorrhage, or some other serious adverse event within 45 days. I also want to push back. I don't know all the science around the abortion pill, but 45 days seems like a long time for like a pill that basically hits it and quits.
Yeah. It works in 72 hours. The whole process is over in 72 hours. So in the next 45 days, if I fall down and scrape my knee, guess what? That's bleeding. And that apparently counts as an adverse event from the abortion pill. It doesn't really scream scientific integrity.
So you're saying they basically just looked at these and then they did a AI search.
Yes.
And similar to how our government ended up like putting tariffs on penguins, they were like, oh, I see the word bleeding. Ding, 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 ding.
Mm-hmm. Sounds adverse. A real study would be peer reviewed. They would take into account any data that, kind of refuted what they were saying. But I'm going to bet Katy Perry's blue jumpsuit that isn't going to happen here.
I mean, I think what's really, really scary about this, right, is that we have an administration that is not interested in facts, like wholly uninterested in facts. And similar to how like RFK is out here saying that there's debris from fetuses in vaccines, which also, have you seen a vaccine? They're liquid. The FDA chief, Marty Markary, basically just put a call out for this kind of stupid data just a week or so ago. He said, I'm not going to do anything to FDA approval of the abortion pill unless new data comes out saying that it's dangerous and I need to rethink it.
And then what happens?
Lo and behold, a scant 2 weeks later, here comes a cockamamie study that is saying just that.
Yeah. So the fear here is that then this becomes the study that ends up at the Supreme Court to prove standing against the abortion pill.
And if you think that this is, extrapolating too far, sitting Congressman Josh Hawley, Erin's husband, has already made a call just for that. He says, hey, Marty Markay, which I just want to say, what a name. It's Marty McCary,
McCary.
Marty McFly has already just said like, hey, you need to look at this new science. We can't have 10% of people who use the abortion pill under duress. So you need to rethink the approval of the abortion pill. And this is just the kind of fake news that this current administration can't wait to use to essentially restrict essential medicine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the way the court is stacked, we know that they are likely to look the other way.
To go back to the court, right? One of the people on the board of this EFFC, EFFFU?
EPPC. Don't forget the PP.
FUUU. One of the people that is listed on their website on the board is Leonard Leo. And if you've been paying any attention, Leonard Leo is essentially the architect of everything you fucking hate about Supreme Court rulings in the last decade, maybe. And he put almost all of the conservative justices on the court in one form or another.
Yeah. And the mission of EPPC is going back to the website with all their dubious shit in it. Their mission statement says they're DC's premier institute working to apply the riches of Jewish and Christian traditions to contemporary questions of law, culture, and politics in pursuit of America's continued civic and cultural renewal.
That just doesn't even sound like a Jewish value to me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm no expert, but
I don't know.
Part of the Muslim dad club here, but I feel like, well, they have 4 pillars, which I can relate to.
Anyway, we're going to keep our eyes on this story. We're going to let you know as it moves through whatever. Currently, there's not much we can do. You can call your representatives and remind them that the abortion pill is known to be safe. It's been on the market for 20 years, and this is not how science is done and how anything we need to basically survive the world at this time needs to be thought through. I'm scared. When I heard about it, I was really scared because they're way excited about this.
Yeah. And with all the real research kind of being flushed down the toilet and all the people doing the real research being flushed out of DC, now is not the time for scary fake science to come about, especially, Moji, when there are fetus thieves.
Ah, yes, the fetus thieves. Longtime listeners may remember that in 2022, it was revealed that this organization, Progressive Anti-Abortion Uprising, aka POW, or representatives of that organization, had somehow acquired 115 fetuses and had been handing them out like real-life garbage pail kids to do creepy unboxing videos.
They're so weird.
They also did fetus namings and burials, which didn't respect, I don't know, anything. And I think it was just a gross out thing, you know?
Yeah, they have a whole website dedicated to what they call the five, and they have names and the mostly ethnic names, which
Oh, of course.
are really upsetting because,
God.
like you said, they're just guessing. But in addition to this, these untrained armchair idiots decided that five of those fetuses, and this is the five that is referenced in the website, seemed suspiciously advanced in their development. And so now they have this whole campaign without any evidence that these were the products of illegal abortions.
And similar to the abortion pill study, this might just sound like some casual fuckery. But when it happened, it led to truly bizarre statements from anti-abortion activists, like that DC is powered by burning fetuses, which sounds green, but is definitely not happening.
It's renewable.
And also, this group that calls themselves progressive found themselves in front of abortion clinics having press conferences with Ted Cruz, who is not a bastion of progressive anything.
Yeah, that don't make sense to me. A couple weeks ago, it led to Representative Chip Roy calling for the FBI to further investigate these fetal remains. And just so we're clear, actual medical professionals have investigated the remains and concluded that there's absolutely nothing to see here.
We're going to get deeper into Chip Roy, but just to give you a overview, Chip Roy has an A+ rating from Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America, and he has truly never met an anti-abortion conspiracy that didn't give him a hard-on. So this is fully up his alley.
And the real danger is that we currently have an attorney general, Pam Bondi, who's super interested in using the DOJ to make up crimes where there haven't been any there before, and even more excited about ending abortion however they can.
So our guest is going to get deeper into it, but like I did find myself when we were planning, like, why did no one ever face any charges or even anything more than ridicule for having fetuses in their fridge? Like they were just in her fridge in her apartment.
Yeah, she was probably wheeling them around in an igloo cooler to get them from place to place. She's storing beer in there now that she's been pardoned by Trump.
This is really, really infuriating. So anyway, to break this down with us further, Liz and I sat down with our next guest who knows all about it. She's an independent journalist covering abortion, reproductive health, and politics. A contributing writer at Jezebel, her reporting has also appeared in The Guardian, Slate, The New Republic, The Nation, and many other publications. Please welcome Susan Rinkunas.
Hey, Susan.
Hi, Susan.
Hi, Liz. Hi, Moji.
We are so glad you are here because with this new bubbling up of information, we kind of just wanted to talk about what it all means. And we were like, how do we open the interview? And it feels like before we even get into the shenanigans about Fetusgate, we got to just give a little bit of backstory on Chip Roy, the Texas congressman who is a devotee of patriarchy. And, you know, he's about as dangerous as it gets, but I feel like he doesn't have the name recognition of a Marjorie Taylor Greene or a Jim Jordan. So I would love to first have you talk a little bit about the power of Chip Roy and his devotion to destroying abortion access.
Well, he hates it very much. You're right. He doesn't have the name recognition, but he's a leader of the House Freedom Caucus, and he will do anything he can to limit access to abortion, including by dredging up this old news story about these activists who claim that they obtained fetal remains outside of an abortion clinic in DC. And there's no reason for the FBI to look into this because local police already looked into it. But Chip Roy seems to want to bring this back up again because he probably thinks that it's good for the anti-abortion movement either to stir up more protests outside of clinics or in fact, drum up support for a ban on abortion after maybe, say, 20 weeks in the United States. You know, a total abortion ban would be extremely, like, a Congress would never pass that, but it is a risk that there could be a ban on abortion later in pregnancy passed by this Congress.
Right. And he's also good old, I'm going to call him Chipper, because why not? He's the House sponsor to repeal the FACE Act, which is the freedom to access clinic entrances, which is the federal law that says you can't do that, or you can get, 10 years in jail and a big fine. He's also the guy who is, conspiring with the Grand Wizard of the DOJ, as we like to call her, Pam Bondi, to kind of erase these protections for abortion clinics.
Right. He is, as you said, the sponsor of a bill to repeal this law from 1994 called the FACE Act. It's freedom of access to clinic entrances. And that was passed after horrific violence against clinics, including firebombings and murders of providers across the country. And it's interesting because the law actually also protects crisis pregnancy centers,
Yes.
right? But he doesn't care. He would rather repeal the protection so that people can do blockades of abortion clinics, block the entrances, occupy the waiting rooms to prevent people from getting abortions. So they're bringing this bill to repeal the FACE Act because now Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. So there's hope that it could pass and President Trump would sign it into law.
I want to go back to Pam Bondi because the minute she became the attorney general, basically started this task force called the Weaponization Working Group. And its whole purpose is to investigate the Biden administration, other professionals, AGs, lawyers who basically try to use the FACE Act to protect clinics that were being attacked. And by reframing those investigations and prosecutions of anti-abortion terrorists as targeting Christian religious beliefs, which of course is a lie, right? Like I don't know, I'm not a faith person, but that doesn't seem right.
It's not right. 23 of these people were convicted because they literally were invading clinics and terrorizing patients and providers.
And so can we talk about the reality of what these extremists are doing at abortion clinics to have these charges brought against them? Because they also try to frame these people, again, as like people having religious beliefs and praying, simply.
Yes, it's really good that you're bringing this up because people like Pam Bondi are trying to act as if people are being arrested for thought crimes of like standing outside in an abortion clinic and being Christian. It's like, that's not what's happening here. People who are indicted and convicted of violating the FACE Act are doing much more than just standing outside and praying. In the case of Lauren Handy, who claimed to obtain fetal remains from this clinic, I mean, she was basically the ringleader of this group of people that went in and chained themselves to the chairs in the waiting room of an abortion clinic and tried to enter hallways behind the reception desk where staff go. And they prevented a woman from entering the front door of the clinic as well. Like, this is not just having Christian beliefs. This is actions. And this is actions that are blocking people's ability to access care. And in fact, they've done this at other clinics too. I mean, they haven't done anything that you saw in the 90s with like bombs or shootings, but these are other things that get prosecuted under the FACE Act. In 2015, a man went to a Planned Parenthood clinic in Colorado and shot people, including staffers and patients. So it's really absurd to try to say that we need to repeal this law because it's targeting people's beliefs. No, it's targeting their actions.
Yeah.
People were convicted of these things, right? Like it's not even like, oh, the DOJ just made this up. People were convicted of these charges. They were in jail. And then our current attorney general just decided to free them, which really puts our clinics and our advocates at risk.
Absolutely. It's a very chilling sign that Trump pardoned at least 20 activists who had been convicted, including Lauren Handy. He did that the first week of his presidency. He did that right before the annual March for Life. And that's basically Trump declaring open season on abortion clinics, even though the law is still in effect. It's suggested to people, okay, if you get prosecuted and convicted, this president will overturn your conviction, will pardon you.
And Pam Bondi has said that any of the cases that were pending that she won't prosecute. We have seen people that were found guilty in Michigan, and because of the people that were pardoned and let out of jail, and because Pam Bondi said, I'm just not going to prosecute these things, the judge didn't sentence them. And so we're seeing this time and time again. And I just want to say, too, that in the cases of some of these 23 people, they took over a clinic in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. And in that case, what we forget is it's also, if you are trapping people in the clinic, that is ostensibly part of that is ostensibly kidnapping because people aren't free to leave. And so there's all of these nuances that come along with that. And so to your point, Susan, it's that chilling piece that is so scary. So you mentioned Lauren Handy, who is a person who has invaded many, many clinics in Washington, D.C., in Michigan, all over the place, right? That's why she was put in jail as one of these 23 people, because she kept doing it over and over again. And she's one of the fetus thieves, right? And so as we look at this weird fetusgate situation, it is really astounding that we have to explain over and over again to people that it actually happened. That feels really maddening, right?
Susan, you and Liz and I and a handful of other people were sounding the alarm when this story broke in 2022. And yet again, the mainstream media just never covered it, or they touched at it and then they let it die. The right-wing media, alternatively, was all over it. They just kept talking about it. I'm putting it in quotes, educating people with these lies and these creepy talking points. And there was no correction of the record. We kind of want to know, why were there never charges brought against the people who stole the fetuses when it happened?
The first thing I want to say is we actually don't know where these fetuses came from. They claim they got them from the clinic, but the medical waste company that contracts with the clinic said that none of their employees ever handed boxes to PAAU. And we don't know if they were actually from abortions. We don't know, frankly, if they're even from the United States. But I think that point you brought up about like why the right and anti-abortion groups keep talking about this is they want to like make it a thing. Like, oh, they did like this investigation and, shoe leather journalism, and they uncovered this potential evidence of wrongdoing. It's like, no, it's just another example of how they use misinformation and like fake journalism. It's like Project Veritas, right? It's like Jacob Wall going air quotes undercover and like coming up with things that have no basis in reality. And they're just trying to say like, look, we have these photos and we think that they're going to creep people out of these fetuses. And like, you should be upset about this. And maybe this clinic that we're targeting is breaking a federal law. And like, we should look into it. It's like just asking questions. And like, they didn't open an investigation, which is why people like Chip Roy are saying like, hey, FBI, now led by conspiracy theorist Kash Patel, you should look into this. And the letter Chip Roy sent to the FBI said that he wanted a response from the agency as of 5 p.m. on Tuesday, April 29th. And I didn't see any response as of yet, but who knows if we're going to see something in the coming days.
Well, and to be clear, the medical examiner did look at the remains and said they're from legit abortions. They also said the fact that you had these fetal remains and then passed them out to your friends to do unboxing videos live on Facebook, you have tainted the remains so that we can't do any kind of conclusive examination. That's on you, idiots. And so it does just seem wild. And it does seem like this gaslighting, bringing it up, is asking a bunch of questions that sound nefarious, setting up abortion care as the Biden administration and Democrats and any of us are whole doubling down on just allowing babies to die, and that's what abortion is. And it just gives them ammunition to try to fuel their way of getting rid of abortion on a federal level. Don't you think?
Absolutely. I think that they want to act like abortion providers are these nefarious people, and that bad things are happening when in fact it's people who are making choices about their own lives and futures. And they're targeting abortions later in pregnancy because they feel like it's going to get a reaction out of folks, and yes, the unboxing videos, like that's, I don't know how you could say that you are being respectful of these fetal remains when you're just like, displaying them on Facebook to be like, ooh, look at this. I do think another thing that is happening here too is that they want more protests. Groups like PAAU and Live Action, which was boosting a lot of these claims, they want more protests outside of clinics because people are coming from other states to those clinics, from states where abortion is banned. And it's sort of like, okay, we're going to shunt all these people to clinics and we're going to make it hell for them to get care at those clinics. Like, this is what we want you to have to walk through a gauntlet so that people, in fact, will eventually just give up, right? This is part of why they also want to be ending telemedicine of abortion pills, because they don't want people to have access like coming to them. They want them to have to go to the clinic and be shamed and potentially, trampled or what have you by these people who want to violate the FACE Act. So it's all part of like a national strategy.
And I think in that national strategy, I'm curious to hear your take, because I'm of two minds when things are only reported in right-wing media. We talked earlier about sort of the update on this Texas abortion law that's terrible, and this terrible study that's happening that's just not real at all, that we also talked about earlier in the show. It's like when only right-wing media is reporting on it, it is framing it for right-wing people and giving them these talking points, but it's not reaching people who might be on the fence about abortion or independence. And it's certainly not reaching us to be able to combat the bullshit. In something like this, I'm trying to decide if we also talked about it, how do we win the argument? And if we just let it live and die in the right wing sphere, do we lose or do we win?
I think that hoping that things will go away by ignoring them is a bad strategy, especially because there is so much disinformation, and these, right-wing media is consistently among the most shared on social platforms like Facebook or what have you. It's like that stuff is going to spread like wildfire. So I think it is incumbent on people who support access to abortion to be talking about this and trying to debunk things as much as possible. There are some people who will never believe what someone who supports abortion access says, but if you can, it is still worth it to have information out there that says, here's what they say is happening. Here's why that's misleading. Here are their ultimate goals, right? You have the ultimate goal is really important because these people want to ban abortion nationwide. So in fact, you kind of have to think of that as the backdrop for everything they do. They just want to come up with anything that will support that goal for them. So it is just a matter of framing and pushing back and hoping that some people will see the light and understand that they want to take our rights away.
Susan, you write so much on this topic, and you're one of our go-to people all the time, and we love reading you. As you have navigated and written, is there a story or a piece that you have written that you got sort of the most wow, I'm going to think about this in a new way because you wrote that? Is there something that you can think of that was not just preaching to people to give them more ammunition to fight back, which I think is important, but also maybe you hit some people and changed their minds?
I don't know if I have changed any minds personally, but I will say that I did see a lot of reaction to a story I wrote for an anniversary of the Dobbs decision, just about how even progressive media or media that isn't right-wing frames people who are denied abortions in emergency situations as tragic. And that is tragic, right? It's like if someone is facing sepsis or, their water broke too early and there's no way that pregnancy will continue and a hospital won't get an abortion, that is a tragedy. The piece I wrote was every denied abortion is a tragedy because there are people who, are going to have impacts on their lives for decades now, financially, emotionally. It's going to impact their children's life. So it was just reframing a bit who gets to be included in the tragedy of denied abortions. It's not just people who wanted kids and had a complication. It's anybody who wanted an abortion and could not get one. So I think that that's helpful as people consume media and talk to their friends too, because it's about autonomy over your own body, right? People should be able to choose not to have kids. We shouldn't only fight for the rights of people who want to have kids.
I think that is so important. And I think both Moji and I are people who've had abortions. And if I had not been able to have my abortions, it would have been tragic.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have died, but it would have been tragic for the trajectory of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody who's denied that should be a tragedy in civil society.
It's a human rights violation. I mean, plain and simple.
Susan, thank you so much for joining us. This was so great, such an important and helpful conversation. And we can't wait to have you back on the pod to talk about the next level of bullshit that's going to rain upon us.
I'll be back with an umbrella,
Yes,
I guess.
and some galoshes. Thanks, Susan.
Thanks, Susan. To support her work, she asked that you donate to the Fund Later Care campaign at the Midwest Access Coalition. The link will be in our show notes.
As always, all these stories will be in the show notes, and you can find the best, most up-to-minute resources on accessing abortion care and funding your care on our website, aafront.org. Our Charlie chatbot is on the bottom right and will walk anyone anywhere in the country through their options and resources for abortion.
We do this show because this info is not given enough attention in the media, so help us spread the word and show us some love by liking, subscribing, and giving us a 5-star rating. Every bit helps us reach more listeners.
Time for a vibe shift. We were reading a lot of Jezebel because Susan was on the podcast, and a friend of the pod, Kylie Chung over at Jezebel, is asking the important questions. Namely, I wonder if George Santos can still film cameos from prison.
Really important questions, Dukes.
It really is. Because he pleaded guilty to 2 counts of wire fraud and aggravated identity theft as part of a federal fraud case, he now has to raise a lot of money. He's been furiously making cameos lately.
I mean, I guess you need a lot of money if you're going to go to jail for 7 years.
It's the cameo commissary.
It's the cameo commissary.
We're going to be funding this man's cigarettes.
I mean, we? Oh, who you calling we, Dukes?
I mean, you're telling me you're not going to buy a cameo from George Santos right before he goes to prison? It's a historical artifact at this point.
What were you doing in 2025?
Mm-hmm.
I love that you said he wants us to applaud that he's not turning to OnlyFans in these trying times, because come on, can you imagine? Oh my gosh, this man has no shame.
Yes. Well, also, like, who's not turning to OnlyFans in these trying times?
Listen.
If he can do it on Cameo, God bless him.
So in thinking about this story and like how ridiculous it is, I think we were like, if we were to actually fund his commissary, what kind of cameos would we order?
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to go first.
I think you should. What kind of, see, this is what I want to know. What kind of cameo are you ordering from George Santos?
I thought about it and I was like, you know what? I think that I would love for him to do a PSA for my kids' elementary school about the dangers of lying. I think that would be fantastic.
I think everybody wants to see that. That's simply too good.
I also thought, because again, it has to be ridiculous for it to be fun for me. And I was like, oh, it would be fun to have him announce the results of your STI
Oh my God, I love that.
to a former hookup. Like, can you imagine? He's like, 2 weeks ago, you got with so-and-so, and I know it was a good time, but just want to let you know that she has tested positive for the drug-resistant gonorrhea. Take care of yourself.
Bye, bestie. That's exceptional. I think I'm going to book him for my mom and stepdad's anniversary. I think they'll really love that. It'll be really special.
A loving moment.
Yeah. For a celebration.
That is hilarious. Let's move on to the next guest, shall we?
Yeah, let's. That was a great vibe shift.
You've probably seen her kicking literal ass with Michelle Yeoh on the Netflix comedy drama series The Brother Son, or you've heard her voice on Fox's animated series The Great North. She's a longtime supporter of AAF. Her socially conscious, boundless creativity is just a part of what makes her one of our favorite comedians. Here to talk about her new podcast, What Should We Talk About? Please welcome Jenny Yang. Hi, Jenny.
Jenny!
Hi, I'm here. I'm still here. Am I here?
You are. You're like Elaine Stritch, and I'm here. And I love it. And I cannot wait to talk to you because I've had like a little bit of annoyance with some comics who, since this Trump administration garbage train has happened and felt a little bit threatening, I've seen comics be like, I don't know if I'm going to do political material anymore. I don't know if it's worth it. And I feel like we're just doing it because it was of the moment, or like just bowing out like Columbia University.
Oh, just folding.
Folding like a law firm.
Yes.
I hate that. No, I get that. Are we going to talk some shit, Liz? Is that what's happening?
Yes,
I think that's
of.
what you guys are doing. Yes. And I'm listening as a non-comic.
But here's the thing, though. I actually never considered myself that political. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then now I was just like, I had a nervous breakdown last summer, and I was like, what are we even doing? And I had to be like, oh no, actually, fuck, I can't do my dick jokes. I guess I have to talk about what's happening in the world. You know?
Yeah.
I've actually made myself talk more about what's happening in politics because it feels necessary. It feels like I'd be asleep at the wheel in a Waymo.
Yeah.
Waiting to be driven around by the oligarchy.
The Waymo is a self-driving car that you guys have?
Yes. If you don't know what a Waymo is, it is a self-driving car. You look inside of it. There's no one in there driving.
That sounds terrifying.
It's a blank driver's seat.
It's like Minority Report.
Yeah. Yeah. So many things in the Minority Report is Nostradamus. So I sat there. I had a little nervous breakdown. I have my little mentee bee. That's what the kids call it, a mentee bee. It makes a mental breakdown sound cuter.
Oh, cute.
Mm-hmm. And I had to sit there and be like, why am I even doing this? And, I think about people like you, Liz. I think about people I admire, like Margaret Cho, like Maria Bamford. And I just I can't let number one, Hollywood get me down, much less this administration. We're too worthy and valuable as human beings to let anything else get in our way. And so I really had to have a moment where I'm like, why am I doing this again? And really just reminding myself. So that's why I started to do a podcast, a weekly podcast. I was laying low during the pandemic. I'm like, I'm tired. I can't. I need a rest. I had to deal with my dad dying, dementia, miscarriages, unsuccessful IVFs, depression, a worldwide pandemic.
And that's not a one-person show for you? What are you talking about?
I truly should write it. I mean, I feel like
Relatable. All the
Yeah.
things you said, relatable.
we have not taken into account the 5 years that we've just disappeared out of our lives. And so, yeah, I just feel like, I think it's time. I figured out a way to get back online and making content again, talking to the public void, and trying to have the kind of conversations I think we need to be having.
Well, you're having them for sure. And I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I've just been doing, test episodes weekly for 10 weeks now. And just this week, I've released the first official one where you could listen to it on podcast platforms.
I listened to it and I loved it.
What should we talk about with Jenny? Yeah.
Basic concept is you have some really great friends, and between your friends and the people who call in, you talk about topics that people bring to the party. And so what I wanted to know, because there's only one episode, so I can't listen to a bunch, right, to get the answer, but are people, when they bring the topics or when they call in, or the people, are they bringing in that they want to talk about what's happening in the world? Or are they bringing in the stuff that they are doing to escape the shit that's happening around them? Or is it some of both?
It's all of it. And that's what I wanted. I didn't want to only do the heavy, heavy topics that are so important. I also wanted to do the other topics that preoccupy our mind, because I do believe we need a balance, right? We need rest as well as fire. We need all of it. So yeah, I mean, I feel like, if you want to, Liz, you can listen to the test episodes that I did. It's only available on Substack. So that's really the home of my podcast. If you want the full cut, you can become a paid subscriber, but otherwise you get a really ample preview cut of each episode. So there's like 9 or 10 that you could listen to of me kind of tinkering with the workflow, the background, how I wanted to host. But, now just this past week is my first official sort of now available on podcasts everywhere kind of episode.
And so did you decide to sort of soft launch it, like test it because you're a perfectionist? Like there's so many podcasts, and like, were you just like, oh, let me see what feels right?
I am a recovering perfectionist, but definitely for this process, for me, I love an iterative process. I like the reps, It was a matter of me figuring out what's going to be a sustainable weekly production process that might still feel creatively fulfilling, And so that was it was also finding what support I needed. So that I think for me to do 10 episodes over 2 months felt right.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
We do that and it's a production. It's a lot.
For me, I don't want to do anything that doesn't feel like it's coming from an authentic place, a place where, it is a part of my life, right? Where I'm going to be wanting to think about certain things, and talk about certain things. And that's why I needed the combination of like the real political stuff as well as the lighthearted stuff. That's why I say when you submit a topic, okay, it could be current, old, petty, important. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It could be esoteric. I don't care. Let's do it. Let's, and I'll curate the list, and that keeps it fun for me too. We can't live on bread. We need roses, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, totally. So how much prep time between knowing the topic and talking about it? Is it fresh? Is it like people bring it and then we're like, okay, we're talking about it? Or are people given the topics in advance once everybody submits?
I get it on a rolling basis from our guests and sometimes from the listeners, but it's mostly from the guests and me. And then, like the day before or the morning of, I pull together the list. When they arrive, I show them a little agenda, be like, hey, if you want to write some notes down, this is what we're going to talk about.
Nice.
And that's it. Yeah.
So the last one was Sinners, which we all haven't seen here, so I don't want to get into.
You haven't.
I said we all haven't seen here. I did not. I was not going to blow up anyone's spot.
Moji's mad at me.
It's an incredible film, and that's all I'm going to say, but I don't want to get into the spoilers. Obviously, your guests had to see the movie, and so insightful. I'm sorry. I'm just like rambling and like gushing a little bit about how much I really enjoyed the guests you had and like the way they chatted. It was just really like cool and fun and also informative.
Thank you. That's such a huge compliment. With this one, because I booked my friend Dolly Lee, who was actually hired as a Chinese cultural consultant for the movie Sinners. She was the one that helped Ryan Coogler inform him about, what role the Mississippi Delta Chinese might have in the story. And so I was like, well, that's great. Let's just talk for the majority of the episode about sinners because there's so many layers to it. Usually we could cover anywhere between 6 to like 9 topics, but we spent the majority of the time on sinners. And then we got to talk with, he likes to call himself a pop culture anthropologist, Blakely Thornton.
Love him.
Yeah.
Never met him, but like one of my favorite people to pop on my IG all the time. He's got the funnest takes.
Of course. Yeah. So I really appreciate that. I feel like this format allows me the flexibility to not have to just talk about one thing, or if I just wanted to talk about a grab bag, let's do it.
Well, then let's do it. So that's a perfect segue into Jenny Yang.
Yeah.
What should we talk about?
We should talk about how Gen Z doesn't want to fuck. We should talk about how we are rapidly trying to create humanoid robots while we have been doing pap smears the same way since the beginning of time. Those are 2 good things.
Okay,
those are really good things.
Let's start with Gen Z doesn't want to fuck, because also boomers are over it.
I was going to say, is Gen Z in this chat? There's no Gen Z in this chat. I want to hear about what the Gen Zs are doing.
Well, listen, in my spare time, I like to read Pew Demographic Research reports. And as they have described.
Now I want to fuck you.
Listen.
Same, Liz, same. That's real sexy.
Because that's what I do in my spare time. Apparently, Gen Z does not have sex as much as older generations back at their age. And so Gen Z is roughly described as like anyone who is currently maybe 28 or younger,
So are they saying why?
Well, they do, but it's really a mix of reasons. And I've been talking about this on stage as a stand-up comedian this past year, and I've done it around the country and, in fact, in Taiwan. And my favorite answer, I've asked them, I'm like, hey, who's Gen Z here? Why do you think, Gen Z's not fucking? And it really ranges from like, oh, we're like too much into like our phones. We don't want to go out and talk to people. Porn addiction is getting to Gen Z. We don't have money to date. Like there's so many different things,
Are they masturbating?
I mean, I don't know. I should be asking. That's true.
I mean, if they're on their phones and there's a porn addiction, it says to me that there's self-love happening, possibly.
And or are they reading more? Like, what are they doing instead? I don't know. I feel like that was the best part of being in my early 20s.
I don't know. I don't know about the reading more part, Moji, but I just know
that's some dream you're making up.
They're not touching each other. They're not touching each other. And I think the conclusion I've had from this is Gen Z does not want to keep up the human species. They're like, you know what? If the human species ended, I'm fine with that.
Fair.
But it's also fair.
Also fair. They probably read the news.
I'm not trying to slide into some kind of pro-natalist argument, but to me, I think if we believe that sex is not just for procreation and that it is a pleasure, it is a way to connect as humans, I think that's a problem,
Yeah.
And then when I asked someone in Taiwan when I did a show there, my favorite answer, she raised her hand. She's like, I have an answer. What, because I'm like, oh, you're Gen Z. Why do you think Gen Z doesn't fuck as much? And she was like, we have higher standards than you.
Ouch.
Hilarious. Accurate.
I mean, knowing that I've done some really terrible fucking.
Yeah.
Like one time, an old roommate and I, young, irresponsible.
Yeah.
And we had to move out of our apartment and we had made no plans. And so the night before we had to move, we each picked up a guy and had sex with him. And then they slept over and then they helped us move and we bought them pizza. I mean, it's not great. I'm not saying that's great behavior. I'm just saying like it was an alternative to being an organized person. And
or
hiring movers. Yeah.
I think that's smart. You were recruiting the day of, truly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You were ingenious and resourceful, I think I would say. But that's the thing. I feel like, with Gen Z, there's sort of, zeitgeisty commentary and arguments around this. It's like, maybe that's why they've turned to become a little more socially conservative because they're the most watched as well as self-aware generation because of the internet, right? Because of social media. And that might make you be more afraid to be messy and chaotic. Can you imagine if what you just described, Liz, was put on a video? you know?
Right.
And so that's why they make fun of millennial cringe. And now there's even a shift where it's like, maybe you need to free the part of you that cringes, not the cringing part. You know what I mean? Wait, no. What is the term?
No, that makes sense.
Right? Like being cringe isn't the problem. Just free the part of you that cringes. Maybe you
Yeah.
should feel free. Maybe you should just be yourself or do the things that make you seem uncool. And that's a little hopeful for me that that conversation has shifted for Gen Z to be like that. Because
Is it hopeful?
it is, because I think what they were making fun of millennials for was that we were cringe, that we were extra passionate about the dorky things we wanted to do, really being into Harry Potter. You know what I mean? Like, which, that's a whole other conversation.
Right.
Who on you, JK? Anyway, it's all connected, right? Their sort of sense of their identity, their sense of self as a generation, and why they've, especially the men, have turned to be more conservative. Yeah, I feel like it's all connected, and that's what I'm curious about. Like both of this sort of like big picture stuff, as well as the like very practical part about how you're not recruiting free people to move your shit if you're not fucking them sometimes.
That makes perfect sense, and just like thinking about being intimate with somebody and then not knowing if they're secretly filming you or is it going to end up on the internet and being canceled.
The world is so scary right now. Yes.
Yeah. Oh my God.
That's like a terror that I'm fortunate that I didn't have to experience in my roaring 20s. And yeah, I could see how that would be an absolute reason to be just a little more hesitant about the choices you make.
Jenny, you're so fun to talk to. Oh my God. Tell people where they can find you, where they can find the pod, where your Substack is, all the things, where you are right now, what your social security number is, whatever you want to give out.
Well, I would love for everyone to become a free or paid subscriber on my Substack, jennyyang.substack.com. That's JENNYYANG.substack.com. That's where What Should We Talk About with Jenny Yang has a home where you can get the full uncut version of the episodes. But you can also now listen to the podcast everywhere you pod and rate and review and comment. And you can also submit the topics that you desperately want us to discuss. And I might just play your voicemail or read your text on the show. And then on social media, I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok at Jenny Yang TV, kind of trying to dabble between Threads and Substack and Blue Sky in terms of where I kind of, do my Twittering.
Yeah.
Everyone's trying to figure it out.
Same way. I'm a dabbler in all those as well. Yeah, it's true. I love you so much. And I'm so glad that you are just reinventing yourself and that Jenny 2.0 is out here in these streets making it happen.
Yeah. What else are we going to do, guys? What are we going to do?
Really, who knows?
I mean, what else are we going to do? That's right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Listen, call her to submit a topic. You can leave a voicemail or text for Jenny at 323-250-3589. And you can find all things Jenny at jennyyang.tv and follow her at all the best social medias at Jenny Yang TV. Finally, you should subscribe to and listen to her podcast, What Should We Talk About, on her Substack. Links will be in our show notes, of course. Dukes.
Hey.
That's our show.
Another week in the books.
Another week done. Everyone, thanks for listening. And thanks again to Susan Rinkunas. And be sure to donate to the Fun Later Care campaign. The link, of course, will be in our show notes. And Dukes, oh my gosh, thank you so much for co-hosting with me. It is always so fun to hang out with you in the pod.
Moji, I would not want to spend Friday any other way than right here, right now, with you and two mics.
Thank you.
Everybody else listening out there, did we make you smarter? Did we make you laugh today? Then go ahead. You know you want to do it. Show us some love by liking, subscribing, and giving us a 5-star rating. Plus, stay connected with us on social media at Abortion Front across all platforms. With your help, we can get more people to learn about this assault on abortion access.
Looking for where you might fit in to do some abortion activism? We've got a 5-part activist training series, Operation Save Abortion, at operationsaveabortion.com. And while you're there, visit our super cool activist calendar, which is full of local and national actions and educational opportunities.
Have you had an abortion and love practicing mindfulness with others? This week's featured action is a virtual monthly series from the Chicago Abortion Fund in partnership with the New York Abortion Access Fund called A Home Here, Post-Abortion Community Circles. Join on Tuesday, May 13th at 7:30 p.m. to check in with others who've also had abortions and find community. Link to sign up is in our show notes. And if you want to get more involved, but you're not sure how, you can always sign up to volunteer at our website, aafront.org, and we'll figure it out together.
And join us next week. She went viral when she spoke out against HB 441 in Georgia, a bill that would ban all abortions and eliminate access to IVF. We'll be chatting with Atlanta-based fertility clinic owner and expert, Dr. Karine Frew, about the heightened risk of criminalization and maternal mortality, that means death, for Black and Brown women in the apocalypse, and what we can do to help fight back against dangerous bills like that. Also, comedian and musician Charlene Kay stops by to chat about finding success on social media, as well as her one-woman show, Tiger Daughter, or How I Brought My Immigrant Mother Ultimate Shame. We really can't wait to hear more about that.
Join our Patreon. You'll support great content and get cool FBK merch and experiences. All pledges support this pod and all our activism at Abortion Access Front. Pledge at patreon.com/feminist buzzkills. FBK is edited by Remy de Tournay and is produced by Jin Moon for Abortion Access Front.
Finally, we leave you with anti-abortion extremist Seth Gruber, a man showing us his whole ass and the devil's whole ballot.
Jesus is neither a Republican or a Democrat. Amen. Absolutely. He is the king, by the way. But Satan is definitely a Democrat. I can guarantee you that Satan has the letter D right before Beelzebub. Okay. That's his party. That's where he can do the most damage.
Feminist Buzzkills, the podcast from Abortion Access Front. New episodes drop Friday. When BS is poppin', we pop off. And if you want to support our podcast and all the work of Abortion Access Front, like, subscribe, and join our Patreon at patreon.com/feministbuzzkills.